Hi there, my name's Wolfster and welcome to Is the Human Race About to Mature? That's the overall theme of all the 18 episodes, and right now, I'm getting close. Now we're at episode 16, Rise of the Humanoids. Now, previously in episode 15, I left off with the development of the first ever galaxy, how that developed from one star or from one particle to a star to a galaxy, and how intelligence actually developed in planetary and star beings. So this is, I'm not talking about humanoid intelligence just yet. What I'm talking about, or was talking about, was intelligent planets and stars, which actually, that may seem to some quite unusual, but our scientists are now starting to come around to this idea. You'll find, if you search on YouTube, you'll find I'm not the only one saying this. And that's great. That's because that's how it is. Planets, they are our mother and our father. They are energies, entities that have intelligence, intelligent beings, intelligent with their purposes, with their own individual development. They develop individually as just the same as us humans. No human is exactly the same, or no planet, no star is exactly the same. So we all develop individually with our own personality, which feeds in to the collective consciousness that is ever growing, ever learning, ever developing. But I'm talking here on a planetary level. However, some planets, as I said in episode 15, a very, very small minority of planets actually developed in that perfect position just by chance, and it's almost like winning the lottery. That's why we see, I'm just jumping ahead, it's why we see so many what we call exoplanets, where in the star systems around us we probably don't see life, because they're just not in the right position. They're not livable. But some planets, just like a lottery, some planets do actually fall perfectly and they win the lottery. So there's a few like that, and these planets that formed in the first galaxy ever, they were able to form, first of all, vegetation, and then animal life, and in increasingly endless varieties. And also they were able, planets are able to communicate through the collective consciousness of that galaxy, that first galaxy. As I've said many times, and I've used this board many times now, life comes from energy that seeks purpose, creating information that encapsulates itself into consciousness that feeds back in a never-ending loop. So that is how everything functions right from the start, and even continues to this day now, today. So we've got planets that were able to produce vegetation and animal life forms. But a major problem existed, and it still exists today, actually. And that is the majority of the rocky planets that develop with each star system that develops. A vast majority do not have planets that are in that perfect position. They don't win the lottery. And there was so many of them. In fact, the vast majority of them fall into that. And as the universal, or at that time, just the galactic, so it was just the first galaxy I'm talking about here, that galaxy as it developed also developed emotions, thinking ability, and with these planets that could not produce life, could not gain purpose and find any purpose, because there's lacking in purpose, then that's what causes decay. So many of these planets started to decay. And that, in the galaxy, in the galactic consciousness, is seen and felt as pain. So, what could be the solution to this? And this is where I'm getting to the idea of this is where the first humanoids started to come into existence. That small number of planets in that first galaxy were able to work out that what they needed to do was to create another level of life, another species. And it was decided to be animal form. Obviously, it couldn't be a tree or grasses or anything like that. So using the animal form, creating a new type of animal, if you like, but one that would have an immortal spirit to it. Because things are always changing, things are always needing to be reset. Animal life does not have an eternal spirit in it. So that makes it possible to realign, to rebalance, to reset whatever needs to be reset. But that the animal life can continue, but it's not a set mold. So animals, and I know I'm going to upset some people, but animals do not have eternal spirits. Whereas, and how about that for timing? I know some people aren't going to like what I'm going to say, but animal life does not have an eternal spirit. They have temporary spirits, and that's very important for them because there's many changes as the planet goes through cycles. Many things have to be readjusted. Animal species sometimes die out and then others replace them. So it's animal life cannot have immortal spirits. But however, these planets that were in that perfect position that you could say won the lottery, they got together and produced a new animal life form. But a life form, an animal life form with an eternal spirit to it. So that eternal spirit could go through many different reincarnations, and in more like the animals do, or the animals don't reincarnate, but they could get these new humanoids can reincarnate so that they can continue to evolve and get to the point where they spiritually mature, and that's the goal of all biological humanoids to get to the point of spiritual maturity. And individually, spiritually mature, but as a race, you're spiritually mature, and that's where I'm talking about here. Is the human race about to mature? But I haven't got to us yet, so I'm still on the level of the first galaxy, the first humanoids. So these were created, and this major problem is then overcome. In time, though, it was worked out that these humanoids who have the role of actually going out to other star systems, other planets, to actually terraform them. They go out to visit them, work out what their position is. They may need to be repositioned. They may need to have satellites brought in to balance them. They may need to have atmospheres developed. So these first races, very, very old races now, they would travel to these stars and bring about these other planets, which today we call exoplanets, that don't have life on them. These other planets could be seeded, or the planet itself becomes awake and then brings about life, biological life, different types of life, and develops. Now, at this early stage, many mistakes were made, because here we've got eternal beings, but they also had to be spiritually mature to be able to do the work that they needed to do. And this was all very much in experimental stage. So many mistakes were made. Many races went wrong and had to make big adjustments. But eventually, many races also got to the point where they overcame this. They became what we would like to understand as benevolent races. And they advanced then very, very rapidly. Once they advanced spiritually, they realized that they also, to fulfill their purpose, they needed to evolve out of the biological stage and into another type of body. Just think about that for a moment. When we spiritually advance to the point of maturity, the body doesn't matter anymore. When we advance spiritually, we connect more with eternal thinking, with the universal idea of eternity. So time doesn't affect us the same, and it didn't for them. They advanced to the point where their technology allowed them to create bodies for themselves that would be suitable for what they needed to do, suitable for traveling to other stars. And these were what we would call now android bodies. these bodies don't die. They can be replaced. They can gain incredible amounts of knowledge. They're capable of technologies way beyond biological form. And they can go out to the other planets. So that is what happened. We get these very, very few in number of technically advanced races that learn to transcend their biological state and move out and start to help resolve the problem with all these other planets that were in desperate need of help. And that continues even to this day. Now, these newly developed planets, when these advanced races move to other planets and develop other planets, this also creates a window for those who are less advanced than they are, but are on the cusp of changing. I might have to properly describe this, to talk about this, I might have to jump ahead a bit. I have already talked about this in previous episodes. And I think the best way to actually talk about this is to use this chart, because this is what happens. Two races develop in the developmental stage. Two races develop. The biologicals continue, but the android goes on into eternity. But what happens when the biologicals become fewer and fewer in number, and there are no new bodies here for a biological to be able to reincarnate into? That creates a problem. As a bottleneck develops here. And that bottleneck means that there's no more biological beings being born, but there are some that are still in spirit form needing to develop. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So it creates another big problem. Now, what it was found was that as planets are in their developmental stage, some other planet races that were still in this stage, they were well and truly on the road to maturity, but there were spirits within their race that still needed biological bodies but couldn't happen on their own planet. They were transferred, those spirits were transferred and were allowed to develop alongside the younger race, and were able to, or given a chance to develop on other planets. So that's what happened. And that still goes on today. So that's the rise of the biologicals and the rise of humanoid androids as well. And this continues to our day. So I'm now going to go into episode 17, and I'm going to say please, if you like what I'm saying, if it makes sense to you, please like me. I have to say what every YouTuber says. Yeah, I need you to like me, to share this if you can, please, so that I can get this information out. And be aware, my website, www.isthehumanraceaboutomature.com. So there's information there. You can also have access to all 18 episodes, and from that point as well. So I'll see you again in episode 17. Bye for now.